Well, again, I'm John with Purina. I want to thank all you guys for coming tonight. And, you know, I do a lot of work down here in Vegas. I'm down here about every 3 weeks, I guess, 3-4 weeks. I do a lot of work with the hotels, casinos. And I was telling the gals up front here, you know, I got in yesterday and I made a bunch of, calls to different ranches and dealers and stuff. And at 10 o'clock last night was my first call, and I wound up over at the Mandalay Bay, because we're doing a lot of work with the exotic animals and whatnot. And I get to go into the hotels, casinos, and see stuff that you guys never get to see. And I mean, there's stuff in behind it. It's like it's amazing what's going on. But anyway, they were processing a bunch of fish and stuff for, the shark reef last night. And I accidentally had a tray of fish guts and juice and everything spilt down the side of my leg, which was like, not the end of the world. But from there I had to go to the Tropicana, talk about the parrots. And then I wound over at the Excalibur. And everywhere I went last night, everyone was... It's me, I stink. But I've showered, I've cleaned, got fresh clothes on. Now my presentation tonight might stink, so again, refrain from throwing food to the end. Give me a chance to get to the hotel and get cleaned up. But anyway, I just kind of want to keep this really fun, informal. If you guys have questions, through the presentation, afterwards, I'm going to kind of hit on the basics, and I'm really going to talk about a lot of the cost factors, in a nutrition program, because a lot of people are really talking about nutrition. What do I need to do for my horse? What do I don't need to do? And I mean, there's a lot of crazy things going on, but the big thing a lot of people don't look at is what it's really costing them per head per day. And when you get into the economy type feeds, it's really amazing because it costs you a lot more money at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, year to feed an economy feed, and you're sacrificing a lot with those economy feeds versus a good quality premium feed. Anyway, little history. I'm the new guy still with Purina. I think in about another 4 years, I won't be the new guy. I'm going on 16 years with this company now. And yeah, I'm still the new guy. I grew up in British Columbia, Canada. Grew up on ranches. I've got a very extensive equine background. We had a lot of broodmares, stud program. I was heavily involved in the rein cow horses. The cutting horses. I was a roping lunatic when I was a little kid, and that's kind of what brought me down here to the United States. But prior to that, I was on the Canada junior ski team for 2 years, and at the time I was the youngest person to ever get bumped up into the open ski team, and I was on the downhill squad, and my career didn't last a very long time because my first race out I crashed and burned, should have killed myself, and anyway, that's kind of went down the road, and didn't want to do the horse thing but got into the horse thing, and anyway, here I am. Nutrition was a huge part of what we did. Any athlete, anything you do, nutrition. I mean, it's huge in everything. And nutrition was a huge part of my equine program. And again, we can look at things from a different perspective, work it into our programs, and I'm sure everyone in here tonight has got a different scenario. Well, we've got something to kind of help or tweak. If you're doing something today, hey, if we can help you a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, get you right back on track. Anyway, when I moved to the United States back in '77, I won my first world title in '77, again in a rein cow horse pen. I've had an opportunity to ride with some of the greatest trainers on the planet. I've ridden some of the greatest horses known to man in the rein cow horse world and in the cutting horse world. After that, I won a couple of more Reserve World Championships, a lot of different titles, won a couple of world titles. But my last year down the road was '82, and I bought a brand new crew cab dually Chevy that year. And in 11 months, I was the only person that drove that truck. Going from California to Texas, back and forth. I put 157,000 miles on that truck in 11 months. I mean, I just flat burnt the tires off it. I can't tell you how many times. At the end of that year, I won another Reserve World title. I won a World Championship title, and I won a little over $120,000 cash money. Sold a lot of horses, made money, in other avenues. But just in the show pen, I won a lot of money. But the thing that really hit me the hardest that year is I had 2 horses that I was getting ready for the Reno Snaffle Bit Fraternity. And one of them, they were both great individuals, but the one that I had really could have been one of the greatest horses to ever walk the face of this planet. And You know, because of the money at these snaffle bit futurities, these cutting horse events, basically these 3-year-old events, the money's so big, you push these horses so hard. And anyway, I wound up crippling this mare 3 months before this futurity. And I just really had to step back and really evaluate what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing. You know, we'd start the beginning of the year with maybe 20, 30 head of horses, you know, 2-year-olds. And if we got 10 or 15 of them up to Reno to the snaffle bit futurity, that was a miracle. And all 10 or 15 shouldn't have been there. They weren't that talented, but we got them there. But a lot of them, we either crippled them or we scrambled their brains. And, you know, it's not just in the Western world. It's a thoroughbred industry. You know, it's a lot of the different industries. What we're doing to these 3-year-olds, I mean, it really should be outlawed. It never will, because that's where the big ding-dong is. That's where you're going to get the big pot of gold, you know, if you hit it. So anyway, it kind of burnt me out, and I stepped out. I had other opportunities. I took other avenues at that point. I was doing a lot of construction, different things. And I guess it was, 16 years ago, I hired on with Purina. Anyway, I deal with a lot of different stuff. Again, you know, the exotic animals. There's stuff I don't even want to get into, but if it's weird, I'm generally right in the middle of it. This is a customer. We were having a little function at one of our Purina dealers, and I'm not a big fan of possums. They're kind of just nasty little creatures. But this lady, she comes walking in with her possum on a leash, and, you know, he was hissing at everyone, and she had them all fluffed up and blown dry and whatever. But I really do. I get into a lot of other things other than the equine. We've got a test program going right now with the U.S. military out of Long Beach. They've got 24 dolphins down there. We've got a test diet for their dolphins, so when they deploy to the Arctic Circle, Persian Gulf, wherever, they don't have to have these big freighters full of frozen fish to feed these dolphins when they're on deployment. You know, so it's very, very interesting. It's a great company. We do a lot of research. We're still the only company in the world that has our own research facility, and we do a lot of testing on everything that goes out, and especially heavily into the equine industry. So anyway, I wanted tonight really kind of get out, you know, what are we doing and what does it really wind up costing? Are you getting your money's worth, or are you getting a bang for your buck? You know, the main deal here is what these horses need. Pretty simple: protein, vitamin, minerals, and energy. And one of the other things that's really a lot of times overlooked, and I'll try not to get into too many of my horror stories, but it's not really a nutrient, but water is hugely, hugely important. And I don't care if you've got horses, you've got ostriches, you've got whatever. You know, if these horses aren't drinking, you know, it doesn't matter what you're giving them. They're not going to eat. It's just going to sacrifice a lot of deals. A lot of times you walk down that barn alleyway, and it's amazing how these 1,000-pound horses, or whatever they are, the water bowls are always in the back corner of the stall. Well, how they can kind of just line up and back into the back corner of the stall and take a poop in that water bowl. Well, when you're walking down the barn alleyway looking in each stall, you know, it's kind of shiny, glazed over, and you really can't tell that they pooped in it. And I've gotten into a lot of situations where, okay, a horse is colic, something, and I get these 911 calls. Your feed made my horse colic. Well, I wind up showing up on the ranch, and, you know, I'm looking for a lot of things right off the bat. And I go into the stall, and there's been poop in there for a week now. Well, they're not going to drink out of that water bowl. Even water tanks out in the field or the pastures or whatever you guys have. You know, a lot of times if that water's too hot, it's in direct sunlight, you know, that water during the daytime, especially down here, can get up to 100, 110 degrees. Well, those horses aren't going to drink sufficient amount of water. So we want to kind of keep that in maybe somewhat of a shaded area. I went on a 911 call here. Again, 16 years, I think I've gone on 14 911 calls where apparently our feed's killing an animal. And, you know, doesn't matter what I'm doing, I've got to drop and I've got to get there right away. And usually they're always out in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell reception. And it's involved, you know, the people, whatever we've done, they've talked to someone at corporate, but I'm the first point of contact. So there's going to be a baseball bat involved. I mean, when I get out there, they're mad. They're so worked up, and I mean, just stuff. Well, I went on a 911 call here in Silver Springs, Nevada, way up north. It was a couple of years ago. Well, as I'm going out there, you know, I'm looking at weather 2 weeks prior. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Well, the warmest day up in Silver Springs, Nevada was 3 degrees. 3. That was the warmest day. And with the wind chill factor, well, the 911 on that one was we were killing a bunch of ostriches. Silver Springs isn't like a really great area. So, I got my great big long crew cab, long bed pickup, and I'm pulling in, and right away I'm trying to figure out how I can park my truck, because if I got to get in it really quick and leave, because I'm going to get beat up, it's good. Well, it's a double wide trailer, and there's 5 people. It's like, I don't know if any of you guys, I have, because I'm not right in the head, have ever gone up to a bee's nest and whacked it once with a stick, and those hornets start flying out, the bees. Well, when I pulled in, that's what it was like with this double wide trailer. There's 5 people, and I wasn't trying to be rude, but I knew right away what was going on. I knew. And I parked away. I was probably about 10 feet away from this first pen, and there was still a dead ostrich in this pen. And this guy, he hollers at me right away because I didn't acknowledge them right away. Well, they've got these 55-gallon metal drums cut in half. They're their water tanks. And there's one there, right there at the fence. There's no heater, there's no nothing. And I walked right up to that thing, and I kicked it. And by that point, these people are right on me. And it was frozen, rock solid. There was no liquid in there anywhere. It was a solid chunk of ice. And I had these 5 people. Oh, we never thought of that. But it was our feed that had killed the ostriches. They had no shelter, no nothing. So even if you're out in the field, you've got pastures, whatever, keep a look at the water. And basically, the equine gas station, again, depending on what we're doing with these horses, they need certain things. The carbohydrates, the fats, the proteins. A lot of times we get fixed in on certain things. Well, John, I like what you're telling me, but the protein level in your feed's not high enough. Or you don't have enough fat, or it doesn't have this, or it doesn't have glucosamine, which I'm going to go rant and raving about glucosamine in horse feed here in a minute. I get a lot of people. This body condition score was developed by Texas A&M. And, I don't know if I got a laser pointer, how well you guys can see it. I think I've got this maybe in one of your handouts. But these are kind of some of the main areas where these horses store fat. And a lot of times, I'll talk to people, and it's like, John, my horse has got no energy. He's this, he's that. I'd love to feed him something to give him a little bit more energy, but he's just so fat. I can't give them nothing. Well, I wind up going out to the ranch, and I want to call animal control a lot of times because these horses are so poor. They've got no fat reserves anywhere on their body, but they've got these great big hay bellies that are almost dragging the ground. And a lot of these folks, they don't have a regular vet program. They don't have a dental program. Horses' teeth haven't been floated in, 15, 20 years. They're full of worms. They're full of whatever. So I try to get these folks back on track, and that's one of the things that we really kind of want to look at is make sure we keep these horses' teeth floated, and we keep them on somewhat of a decent worm program. And you guys are there every day. Touchy-feely, you can see them. If there's something going wrong, usually they'll let you know. But that's the big thing I hear is I can't feed anything because my horse is too fat. Well, again, they're a body condition of maybe 2, and they just got this great big bloated belly. Calorie intake. Okay, you guys probably can't see this. Sometimes I see horses that they're like the Goodyear blimp. They've got fat reserves. They can catch rainwater, in that top line on their back. You can't even see. I've got one at home. She's crippled. And, my wife and daughter just say, they got to feed them. And 60 Canadian geese and 2 mallards. And I work for Purina, and I got to buy feed from a dealer because I don't get a good deal on it. And I go through 200 pounds of cob, every week with these. The Canadian geese are the worst. But, you guys don't have lush green grass down here. And then a lot of people, they get talking about, it's so beautiful, the wild horses and this and that. But if you actually ever get up close to them, lifespan of a wild horse is maybe 6 years. And they got to fight for everything they have. And we're seeing more and more, and we're doing work with BLM up in northern Nevada. And people that can't afford their horses or don't want them anymore, they can't sell them, and they'll drive out in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, and open that trailer door and kick their domesticated horses out and oh, it's beautiful. They want to sing Kumbaya, they'll hook up with the wild horses, it'll be beautiful, and they'll live happily ever after. Well, generally, if they do wind up hooking up with those wild horses are going to do everything in their power to kill that domesticated horse. It's just, it's horrible, 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 horrible. And, you know, hey, we may have, you know, brood mares in gestation, lactation, whatever. Everyone, again, in this room has probably got a different scenario. Calorie intake, you know, it's important. You know, do we need a higher calorie diet? Do we need to ramp up on the vitamin minerals? You know, it's gotten really complicated what we need. But then it's also even become more complicated because there's so many economy feeds out there, and there's so much magic foo-foo dust and snake oil that these companies are making claims to, one scoop of this and a squirt of this. Well, when you get home at the end of the day, your horse is going to fold the laundry, have the kids fed, bathe, the homework's going to be done, and they're going to be put to bed, and you can have a glass of wine and off you go. And I mean, there's no research, there's no documentation, there's no nothing behind any of this stuff. So, you know, a lot of things we want to look at is the sources of proteins, the vitamin, minerals, you know, and that's going to add to the hair coat, hoof quality, a lot of different things. You know, the nutrition intake, you know, it's a pretty good sized bell curve. And again, I don't know how well you guys can see this. You know, this area right in here is pretty optimal, depending on what type of horse you have. Again, it could be a brood mare, it could be whatever. But we need to look at every horse on an individual basis. You know, down here, like these folks I was talking to, that they couldn't feed anything else to their horse because he's already overweight. The ones that I wanted to turn into animal control, they were, well, they weren't even really on the chart yet. They were so deficient. But then you get up into here, and what happens is I go into even a lot of ranches or facilities that should know better, and they're feeding like a cob or they're feeding an all stock, and they've got 5 tubs and a jug of juice, and they're feeding it to these horses. And there's so much competition for those selective digestive points. A lot of times you're either creating toxic levels or it bypasses those selective digestive points and it goes right out the back door. So we can get into some toxic levels. And then we really get talk in certain parts of the country, oh, I'm selenium deficient. I need to feed lots of selenium. I'm telling you guys, anyone that thinks or whatever, you need to come here to Desert Pines Equine and talk to these guys before you start chucking selenium to these horses. Because when you get into selenium toxicity, man, it's a bad, bad deal. I mean, their hooves will slough off, their tails will slough off, and it's just, if you try to save them, it's going to cost you guys a fortune, and it's going to take forever to do it. So that's where I'm kind of at. You know, we want to be, whatever we're doing, ponies, performance horses, pasture potatoes, we kind of want to be in that optimal area. So, you know, basically, how do we do this? You know, there's so many choices out there. There's so many feed companies. John, you're a great one up here talking. You know, Purina's got like, what, 75 horse feeds? Well, we've got a lot of different vehicles to get you from point A to point B. Just depends if you want to drive a Ford, a Chevy, or a Dodge. And again, then we even get into those subcategories where each product is for a specific need. You know, and again, it's become so complicated to feed. Forget about horses, you know, even dogs. When you guys go to the grocery store, if you buy your pet food there, I mean, it's overwhelming. It truly is. But especially in the equine industry, it's even more so. And the FDA is really going to start clamping down over the next couple of years and requiring a lot of these outfits that are making, again, the magic foo-foo dust and, you know, the snake oils. They're going to have to provide documentation. And to get that to the FDA, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I mean, there's got to be trials and studies, whatever. So you're probably right off the get-go, when the FDA goes after these outfits, you're going to see probably about 80% of these supplement companies in the wind. They're going to be gone because they can't come up with it. You know, generally it's some dude sitting behind a desk and what's the hot thing now? Scratching his head. He don't even know how to feed a horse, but he's a marketing guy. So in 15 minutes, he comes with a big marketing campaign and scoop of this and some of this, and this is the hot ticket this week. And it's then a great package, and then they go to these trade shows and online and, you know, get someone down the road to try it, and hopefully it doesn't kill their horse, and then word spreads. Well, again, I mean, where's the research? What is it doing? But it's a feel-good thing to a lot of people that are feeding us supplements. Broom closet feed programs, and again, I run into a lot of that where people, I don't want to hear, John, about your kumbaya. Purina's been around, but you know what? I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to mix my own feed. Probably the folks that are the worst are the ones that are in the endurance industry. I go up to Tevis Cup, I'm sorry, and you walk through and watch these guys at feeding times, and usually they'll have these shower deals, some of them set up, where you're supposed to take a shower, and they've got like a dark curtain, and they're in behind the curtain, and they're mixing some of this, and a little of this, and a squirt of this, and they peek out to make sure no one's watching them. And, trying to come up with the broom closet feed program, it's tough, because you think you're doing right, but you don't know. Are you providing an adequate diet for these horses? For whatever you're doing, but the big thing is, the same thing. Is the adequate diet, you feel good because you think you're getting a great value. And that's what I'm really, really going to start talking about here in a second. And bottom line, a lot of these broom closet feed programs, oh, it didn't work. Oh, I had a little deal. So anyway, oats, old school. We use a lot of oats in our products, but I have, a lot of folks that I'll work with, and again, they're trying to get down the road. They're feeding a cob or they're feeding a high oat diet. Hey, that's what my dad did. That's what grandpa did. Well, oats are great. They're cheap, but they're lacking in so much. They're inverted in calcium, phosphorus, the ratios are off, and they're lacking all kinds of trace minerals and vitamins. So it makes you feel good to feed the oats along with your hay, but you got to add a lot of stuff. The other thing with oats is they're about 1,500 calories per pound. And, it's always hard. I really encourage folks to get a feed scoop and kind of measure. You can go to Walmart, you can go to anywhere, get a cheap fish scale, and put a pound of whatever in there. But like the universal feed scoop, the Juan Valdez, the coffee can, it's 3 pounds of coffee. It ain't 3 pounds of nothing else. You fill that up full of oats, and it's probably going to be 2.75, 2.76 pounds. Well, again, it's 1,500 calories per pound, and these horses can't store those calories. It's like anyone, we got kids in the room, sorry to pick on you kids, but it's like 8:30 at night, they got to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Hey, here's a Snicker bar, eat this before you go to bed. The turbos start winding up on these kids and trying to get them to go to bed at 9 o'clock. Well, again, oats can kind of help in certain situations, racetrack situations. But a lot of what we're doing, there's a lot better way to go. And there's even more economical ways to go. Okay, we get into a lot of the brand X. I'm not going to name names. I'm not here to ditz on other feed companies or slam or whatever. Brand X, it's usually cheaper. It's just as good as Purina. But yeah, again, it's cheaper. It's going to be lacking ingredients. There's a lot of things with the brand X. It's a good price point. Now, on a weekly basis, I can't tell you folks how much competitive feed I wind up buying. I'm not buying it, and it's not just me, it's guys from all over the country. I'm not just buying it because I'm trying to figure out what brand X is doing. I send it off to a completely independent lab, not affiliated with Purina. Now, generally on the bottom of all these bags, even ours, there's this thing called a feed tag, and it's supposed to be a guaranteed analysis. And I'm going to show you some of these here in a minute. But like, I'll take brand X, and there's even some brand X's that it's amazing what they're putting into this feed. But, protein's supposed to be at a certain point, vitamin, mineral. And again, from an outside independent lab, I'll get results back. And half the time they think I'm nuts. It's like, because it doesn't even come close to what it says on the feed tag. Well, you guys are buying a product, whether it's for your horses or, something you're going to eat for supper, whatever. Hey, this is what it said. This is what it should wind up being. But a lot of times, especially here in the horse industry, it's not. We do a lot of testing. We are probably the largest rejecter of ingredients in the entire world. It's embarrassing what we reject on a daily basis. Is that a big deal? Well, corn, from January to January, that protein level is like that bell curve I showed earlier on, where we need to be with these horses. You can be down at a 6%, you can be up at a 16%. Well, if we were buying corn from January to January and putting that into diets, it's going to affect the bottom of the feed tag. Well, a lot of companies, they really don't care, if their tags are off a little bit or whatever. The big thing also what we're looking for is aflatoxins, microtoxins, things that really don't go well in a horse's diet. And it's really amazing, the stuff that we reject. I work out of the Turlock, California plant, and there's probably 4 or 5 other major feed companies not too far from where we're at. And a lot of that stuff goes to these other feed companies. They're kind of okay. Purina's a little bit, prima donna, whatever. Well, we're not. I mean, we just want the right stuff, and when we pull in corn or whatever the ingredient is, it's got to meet a certain criteria before we let it in. So again, doesn't matter if you're buying feed from us in December or January in Fort Worth, Texas. It's going to look the same. It's going to tag the same. I think it's very, very important, especially when we kind of get into these horses that we're doing something with. And then I'm going to kind of get into the cost factor. But again, you can go to Costco, you can go anywhere. A little fish scale. A lot of times I'll go out on a ranch and, how much hay are you feeding your horse? Well, a flake, the flake. Well, I cover a lot of real estate. Flakes are all over the board. Well, it's like one of those flakes. It's kind of important to know how much hay. You don't have to weigh it every day. Just take some baler twine. Okay, this is my average flake. Tie it up, put it on a fish scale. 8 pounds, 18 pounds, whatever. So at least you kind of know how much roughage you're getting, per day. And then figuring out the price of feed, it's so easy. But it's also hard at the same time because when you go in to buy feed, you see brand X is $12 and Purina strategy is 15 or 16 or whatever it is. Well, I got to buy 5 bags of feed, oh man. And a lot of times people go with brand X. Well, I'm going to show you how at the end of the week, end of the month, it winds up costing you a lot of money and you could be doing a lot better job with the Purina. All you do is just whatever you paid for the bag, you divide it in pounds. So you got most everything now is in a 50-pound sack. I think I've got this in one of those handouts up there. And then that's again where it's kind of important to figure out how many pounds of feed you're feeding per day. I'm doing 1 pound, 10 pounds, 15, all over the board. And then, if you're doing the supplements, you need to be honest with yourself. Because a lot of times if you're feeding even close to the recommended amounts of Purina, we don't need all these extra supplements. And again, maybe that's something that you need to discuss with your vet. Because again, I go to these facilities, 4 or 5 supplements, and we can create toxic levels or they're costing you money. So you be honest with yourself and you kind of figure it out, and it's really easy to convert into what it's costing you per head per day. What did I do? Brand X. It works out to $4.79. I did this presentation up in Carson City a little over a month ago. So I pulled these numbers off some feed prices up there. So they may not be 100% accurate, but they're going to be kind of close enough to kind of let you know where I'm kind of going with this. They've got senior feeds, on a maintenance program, 20 pounds per day, cost for a 1,000-pound horse, you're getting up there pretty good. But you don't realize that because you only paid whatever, not even 14 bucks on the front side. You guys, I don't know if you have much of the, these guys I don't have a problem bashing on. Elk Grove milling, do you guys have Elk Grove milling down here? Okay, that's like fabulous. Because that's like the worst. They have buyers go around the United States, and the guys that are making alfalfa cubes, there's good guys and then there's bad guys. And you can really hide a lot of stuff in alfalfa cubes because it goes through a mixer, chopper, water, steam, heat, whatever. Well, the good guys, they're only going to go so far. If the hay's not 100%, that's okay. But the bad guys, if there's like a raccoon and some tin cans, whatever, it's going through the process. It's going to get ground up and it's going in alfalfa cubes. Well, this one outfit, Elk Grove Milling, what even the bad guys, what they reject, that's going into their horse feed. So I'm horrible. I bash on Elk Grove Milling every chance I get. And when they kill horses, it gets swept under the rug really, really quick. But it's probably, bar none, one of the cheapest feeds on the planet. They've got a senior feed, and they've got glucosamine, in their senior feed. Well, where I was going to go earlier, Glucosamine could be okay in certain situations. It's probably going to still be another year or two before we actually know if it works in the equine. There's got to be other things with the glucosamine, the chondroitin sulfate, and the MSNs really help. But they put enough glucosamine in our horse feed just to get it on the tag. Well, there's this outfit that we have a hard time getting around. It's called the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. And if we do anything, we're mandated what we can and can't do. Every single one of you guys can go home and get on a computer, and it'll take you about 15 minutes, and you can get into the FDA website, and this is what it says to us, the manufacturers. No, there's no way we can put glucosamine in horse feeds. But yet there's still company because they fly under the radar a little bit and they're putting it in. But again, without the chondroitin sulfate as a carrier, it's going in the front door and right out the back door. It just is. So there's things that we got to look at. There's the buzzwords. Ooh, I need that. If you need it, buy the supplement. There's good companies, there's bad companies. You guys control the amount of intake, and every single horse on your ranch doesn't need it. Okay, what are we doing with these guys? Do we have race horses? Do we have rope horses? Do we have pleasure horses? We got brood mares, babies. We've all got something. I talked to this gal here yesterday. I was at one of my feed dealers. She's got a Shetland ponies. And they're really, really hard to feed, because if you give most of them a cup of water, they turn into the Goodyear blimp. Well, she was having some issues, and we kind of got that addressed, and she's feeding absolutely one of our products, and she's right on the right product. But it doesn't contain any fat or any extra vitamin minerals. She was having an issue with her horse shedding out and dry, flaky skin. So I just kind of tweaked her program a little bit, and she's going to try some of our top dress supplement. It's our high fat nugget Amplify. So again, you got ponies, or again the pasture potatoes. Even those guys need something in their diet. So we got to figure out first, what are we doing? Where are we trying to go? Okay, yeah, we define the nutritional objectives. Okay, I've got a lot of different products, again, to get you from point A to point B. Some people like a pelleted feed, some people like a sweet feed, some people don't want to feed at all. They want a concentrated vitamin mineral pack. So we really need to figure out, what are we trying to do here? And once we kind of figure out what we're doing, and we kind of really maybe just take a step back, what am I doing now? And it'll be better for a lot of you guys tomorrow, because after you've gone through this and you've read some of my stuff tomorrow, it's like, did this yak last night make any sense? He's got me confused, whatever. But I'm going to have all you guys my 24/7 cell phone number, so if you got questions, you can't talk tonight, you can get a hold of me anytime. But once we figure out what that is, then we can kind of figure out the cost per head per day. And is that really a big issue? A lot of times, no. But then really, yeah, a lot of times it's really, really a big issue. The cost really plays into what we're doing with these horses. And it's simple. It's like, I used to have in my presentation, but a lot of people didn't have it. Again, I work for Purina. I've got 2 horses, 3 goats, 60 Canadian geese that won't leave. And, we can't have any bigger dogs. We've got an English Mastiff, 185 pounds, and I've got a Great Pyrenees. I leave for 3 days, and we have new pets show up. Oh, yeah. Well, an average dog eats 6 times his own body weight per year in food. So it's like, honey, isn't there anything out there that's like 230 pounds? Because I just love buying expensive dog food. But, when you talk about quality of ingredients, and it's kind of an easier example talking about pet food here, because a lot of people, whether you've got a small dog or a big dog, medium size, if you're feeding an economy dog food, well, when the guys go out and do their business, usually what happens, it's a big sloppy mess, it's a bigger stool. You're feeding a lot, but it's going through the front door, tags out protein and everything really good, but they can't really utilize that. So what you're putting in the front door is going out the back door. And why I took it out of my presentation is my wife, she walks out one morning with her cup of coffee, and she's standing on the back porch, and I'm following the dogs around because I know they're getting ready to do business, but me with the camera, they don't want to do business. And finally, one of the dogs is getting ready to, and what are you doing? I need a picture of this for my presentation. All I can tell you is when you have a 185-pound dog, and that dog, if you're on an economy dog food, and they do business in your backyard, all you know is like, okay, did Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus have their elephants tied up here last night? Because I'm telling you, when I clean up after this dog, I need a snow shovel. Anyway, you're not going to see that in my presentation. So quality ingredients and nutritional value is really, really important, even more so with the horses. You know, I think a chicken's got a better digestive system than a horse. I mean, someone was on a coffee break when they designed the digestive system for the horse. I mean, they colic, it's something, it's whatever, it's always some. We really want to look at the vitamin minerals, where they're coming from. You know, we never use anything that's imported from China or anything. Everything we get is from the United States. And I think that's really, really important because the quality of nutrients that we're putting in each specific diet, that's where you guys can get a way bigger bang for your buck. Quality of, whether, you know, it's an Omaline, a textured feed, or it's a strategy pelleted feed, they are so concentrated because they're so nutritionally dense, you can truly feed way less and get a way bigger bang for your buck. So just as your guys are buying your feed, start thinking about that cost per head per day. Look at that bag. I mean, I'm sure you guys kind of every week or every couple of weeks, you buy a bag of feed. You've probably got a ballpark idea what you're paying for that bag of feed. You know, I don't have any prices here tonight, but next time you're at the feed store, just take a look. And then it's really easy because a lot of this information, you know, how to feed a horse, you can flip the bag. So a lot of these numbers, it's not something that I made up. I've flipped the bags. And again, it's hard with the Purina products because they're a national bag. We've got really good forage quality out here on the West Coast. We can't have a specific regional bag. But with our forage quality, we can truly feed a lot less. I mean, I've got guys blowing and going on 3 and 4 year olds getting ready for big events. Like on my strategy product, they're feeding 1.5 pounds maybe per head per day. And these horses are maintaining and blowing it and going and looking good. I have an example right up front here, not to put you on the spot. You know, Stephanie's here. She was having trouble with her barrel horse, and you were feeding, she was feeding a strategy. Hey, my product. But she'd kind of get halfway through the day, kind of running out of some steam. Well, let's get a little bit more octane booster in a fuel tank. So we talked last month or whatever, and now I've got her on a product called Ultium. It's designed for the high-end performance horse. And now she can kind of go through a weekend rodeo or whatever, and her horse isn't losing the energy or losing the steam. So there's a lot of things we can do. We can ramp them up for certain reasons, and we can back them off for certain reasons. But again, when you really start looking at the economy type feeds that are out there, or even competitive feeds, you really need to look at the tag. And over the years, I've had people, John, you're full of baloney. Well, you know, for 15 bucks, there's probably 5,000 independent labs across the United States. For 15 bucks, you can take a Ziploc baggie and send it off and have it tested. Purina won't know nothing about it. And generally within a week, you're going to get emailed results back. And it's really, truly amazing. And I've had a lot of people over the years do that. You know, I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong. And they get the results back. And I don't get very many people really call me back. Pretty soon they bump into me. Oh, man, I did what you said. Yeah, how did that work? Got the results back. You know, we knew you were lying. You're a coyote. But, you know, the protein was way off. And this, it didn't even have this. It was missing this and whatever and whatever. So, I mean, it's truly out there. It's just the way a lot of these feeds are designed, you know, they don't adjust the tags. You know, we're still the only outfit in the world that's got our own research facility. 1,200 acres almost in Grace Summit, Missouri. I've got 10 cow guys going to a VIP there next week. Highest quality ingredients, PhD formulations, and everything we do goes through at least 4 years of R&D. Complete lines of products. But anyway, okay, so Purina Equine Senior. This is probably off. Am I off on Equine Senior? Okay, this was Carson City last week. So I've got a better slide here in a second. This is my Country Acres. This is probably, our Country Acres is probably our most economical feed. It's a horse feed. It's got a little bit of a vitamin mineral pack, but on the same horse, $448 per head per day versus my equine senior at $360. Oh, I didn't put the price of the bag. I think that was like $11, something on the country acres versus 22. But you got to feed like almost 18 pounds. Strategy, that's like one of my number ones, that, you know, whatever situation I go into, you know, it's got a very, very aggressive vitamin mineral pack. You can use that on absolutely everything on the ranch. You got, again, you know, the lawn ornaments, mares in gestation, lactation, performance horses, whatever you got. That's my go-to all the time. And it's probably one of the most economical feeds in the country to feed. And on a 1,000-pound horse, I'm at 3 pounds, you know, just kind of average to moderate work. I'm about $1.19. Again, up in Carson City, it could be maybe $1.50 or something down here. But anyway, here's the Brand X, you know, kind of maintenance, $479, Brand X Senior, $527. Okay, Equine Senior, being Carson City, $360. Strategy GX, $1.19, and my Healthy Edge is $1.29. So, you know, that's why it's really important to look at what we're doing, you know, because you see the value. God, I need to buy 5 bags, and his is like $5 a bag cheaper. That's another 25 bucks. But if you just do a little bit of that simple math, I can save you a lot of money and do you a way better job. Okay, I think I'm kind of blew through a lot here real quick. You know, the main thing is, again, you know, if you guys have brood mares or whatever, just really look at the feed program. You know, you may have a neighbor down the road, you know, that's doing something. You may have read something on the internet. But it's like, where is that information really coming from? You know, the nutrition in the equine, it doesn't need to be difficult. You know, again, we really need to be kind of aware, or I hate to say it, a little apprehensive of a lot of these supplements that are out there. I work an event. Again, I'm here to bash on supplements, I guess, tonight. You know, there's a deal up in Sacramento. It's like, it's the worst event. I can't get away from not working it. I'm forced. It's like I did something wrong. It's Western States Horse Expo. And every year, any new product, oh man, it's there. And you know, it's just as good as Purina. It's better, cheaper. But you know, if you're talking to reps, or you call the company, again, where did you guys get the research? I don't want this to be complicated for you guys, but you know, you go to a lot of different feed stores. You know, got the 2 gals up front here from Cal Ranch. Very knowledgeable. I mean, they can give you the rundown. And even if you're feeding a Nutrina or a Farmers or whatever product, you know, and you're lacking something, these gals here, or you can get a hold of me, or you can get a hold of the vet practice. There's a lot of sources for that information on how to tweak and how to improve things a little bit to get you a way bigger bang, a better bang for your buck. And again, you know, I won't say this again, I work for Purina. You know, yeah, they'll sell me feed, but they don't give me a good deal on it, because there's some guys years ago that kind of wrecked that. And instead of my kids standing up on a corner, you know, on Saturday and Sunday selling lemonade, you know, we've had kids up there selling Omelines and horse feeds and whatever. So again, I go to a dealer over in Carson City, he's a really good friend of mine, and I buy my feed like you guys buy it. I don't have a big ranch, you know, I got to go buy hay. I know what it costs and what it takes to feed these guys. And, you know, I've really tried. I'm a traveling sales guy. I don't make a lot of money. So I'm watching every penny. And man, it's hard not to look at those value, economic, cheap type feeds. You know, if I can save $5 here, $10 there, whatever, at the end of the month, it's kind of a big deal for me. But I don't, because I know where it's going to get me and what it's going to do. But anyway, I kind of blew through this real quick. A lot of this stuff is definitely in the handout. I've got a lot of different feeds. You know, we can kind of talk about a lot of the different feeds and why not, what it'll do for you or what it won't. And again, we've kind of made it complicated too. We've got complete feeds. So theoretically, you know, if you've got a horse that lost all his teeth and his digestive system shut down to the point where he can't eat anything, you know, we've got the equine seniors. We've got other complete feeds where you don't have to feed a roughage. We've got the pelleted feeds. We've got the sweet feeds. It just depends on what you guys want to do. Now, here real quick, and I'll start taking questions in a second. You know, a lot of people say, well, You know, John, I can't feed a sweet feed. I really want to, but you know, again, I got that horse, if I give him a cup of water, he's like through the roof. Well, we've got patents on our molasses, and it's kind of killed the feed industry because they haven't been able to copy it. And we've taken 80% of the sugars out and starches and increased the fat levels. So you'll see on a lot of our bags, controlled energy formula. You know, when you really get into the performance type horses, starches and sugars are generally something we don't want. I don't know if any of you guys go to any of these events, cutting horse events, whatever. And it still kills me today because I used to be in that pen. But you see those guys loping their horses for hours and hours before they show. And I wouldn't do that. You know, one of the guys I was working with, that was our biggest fight. I don't do that at home, and I'm not going to do it on the road. I'll get them out there, warm them up a little bit, but you know, I got other ways to get the nerves out of me if I'm nervous. But again, you know, you don't have to worry about a lot of these feeds getting your horses hot and crazy because we're extremely low in the starch and the sugars. We've got patents on so many different deals. The fat source, you know, a lot of people, well, you know, I like using rice bran. Hey, that's good. It's a good fat source. You know, there's rice brands out there that I know that your horses are going to do everything in their power to sift every little granule of that. And after feeding, you go back and it's like, you sucker, because there's just white residue on the bottom of the feed bunk because they sifted everything out. Even with those big leathery lips, how do they do it? There's some rice brands that, you know, they'll eat that are pretty palatable. Rice bran, unstabilized, I hope no one's not feeding unstabilized rice bran because that can really create issues in these horses. But, you know, a stabilized rice bran, you're maybe 72% digestible. You know, it's got a good, decent amino acid profile. We can get some shine. But again, you know, you're higher in starches and there's some things that just really aren't ideal. And then you also get into palatability issues. You can go to Costco and you can buy 5-gallon buckets of corn oil, vegetable oil. Man, that's cheap. But I'm very, very leery of that because the starch levels are really, really high. And we get into palatability issues. And we get into muck in the feed bunk. And you start feeding that, you got flies and gnats and everything all over the place. So we go from vegetable or corn oils, then you go into a soy oil. Hey man, that's a great, great fat source for the horses. In fact, years ago, that's what we wound up using. You know, it's maybe in the mid to low 80% digestibility. So you can truly feed less and you get a bigger bang for your buck. Well, we came out with this fat nugget here quite a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. It's called Amplify, and we use it as an ingredient in our feed, and we also have it as a supplement. You can buy it on the side. This is a 30% fat nugget. You know, anything, I don't know, you get up into 30% fat or anything, and it can be a cold day, and it should just melt like a blob of just whatever. You know, we've got patents on how to hold this together. It's about 98 point something, I forgot whatever the point was, digestible in the equine. So you can pretty much on a 1,000-pound horse take a shot glass and feed it, and the digestibility is so high it's going to go to where you need it. And that's really going to help on a lot of different things. You're getting some extra vitamin minerals into them. It's really going to help with the skin and hair coat. You know, in a month and a half to 2 months, you'll start seeing those hooves starting to darken up. But the big thing is because of the amino acid profile. Our fat source comes from soy, palm, flax, soy, palm, flax, soy, palm, flax. I forgot one. Oh my God, I had too much coffee today. But anyway, it's a very, very good fat source. And again, a lot of folks, okay, whatever you're doing, if you are on a cob or you're an all stock or an economy diet, but your horses aren't shedding out, they just don't look good, they just aren't blooming. Stephanie, she's probably, you're a month and a half, 35 days now? Once you get on that, I don't care what you're feeding, show glow, this, that, whatever, you know, your horse is going to wind up like re-blooming. It's just that skin coat starts getting darker. You know, you can get accelerated mane and tail growth, and you can really help with the hoof quality, you know, because it's the oils and the extra vitamins in the system. And that is truly one of the most economical fat sources to feed. Yes, ma'am?
What's the calorie content in that?
Per pound, which we don't need to be feeding a pound. You know, even if Secretariat was alive and running, we'd probably kill them at that. I think you're at 1,900 calories per pound on the Amplify. But again, you're feeding small amounts. Virtually no starch and virtually no sugars.
So how much what's the standard feeding of that?
Well, depending on your horse and what you need to do, when you buy a tub of it, or we have it in a 50-pound sack, there's going to be a measuring cup in there. And again, we really need to back off on that because we're looking at forage qualities all over the country, whatever. So I would say, you're looking maybe at a half a cup. I mean, if you're really needing to get some condition, some weight, some bloom and shine on a horse, maybe a half a cup. The thing is because it's a 30% fat nugget, what we really got to look at is in 30, 35 days, if you're feeding one of my other products that also contains the Amplify, then we're top dressing with the Amplify, we got a lot of fat going into the diet. So all of a sudden you walk out there one day and it's like, oh my God, what happened? It's like they took an air hose and, blew them up a little bit. So we just got to watch those diets a little bit. And a lot of times people ask me, well, what should I do? I need weight. Well, there's two ways to get there, slow or fast. I hate slow. I want to walk out and look at my horses and see that they look good. So a lot of times you put them on an aggressive feed program, depending on what you're doing right now, because, again, we don't want to do anything really drastic. We want to kind of work them into it. And usually a month and a half down the road, you'll start seeing a lot of changes. But you need to watch them because as those changes, and then now they're looking good, you're probably going to have to start backing them off and put them on a good maintenance program for whatever you're doing. It's easy. Sounds good, doesn't it? So anyway, we've got the pelleted feeds. A lot of folks don't like a pelleted feed because a lot of folks think it's like whatever we can't sell, whatever we drop on the floor every day, we sweep up and we make horse pellets. No. This to me, and it's been around for a long time, is one of the greatest feeds and one of the most economical feeds. I'll put it up even against that cheap barrel feed I was talking about earlier. There's nothing better than Strategy, but it's an ugly little gray pellet. You open up the bag and it smells like fresh licorice. We use a lot of flavor enhancing. That's a big part of also what we do. We can build anything, but if you guys buy it and your horses won't eat it, it's not going to do you any good. So Strategy is my main one. We came out with another strategy because a lot of people just like to feed their horses, as a little treat. So they weren't even feeding close to the recommended amounts. Just a little handful. I want to mix some stuff in there. It's a prettier pellet because we have more soil sprayed on the outside of it. So it's like 2% higher in fat, and it's even got more aggressive vitamin mineral pack, so you can truly feed less. But it's going to cost you maybe 10 or 15 cents per head per day more to feed this. Some of these operations that have over 100 head of horses, that adds up a lot, at the end of the day. Then we've got our Equine Senior. And everyone's got an Equine Senior, just as good as Purina, but cheaper. And, they've done something, or, we're putting something in there. You don't have glucosamine. But truly, if you have that horse that's lost all his teeth, digestive system shut down, you can take that, put it in a black bucket, and put enough water in there, and they can drink it like a milkshake. Wintertime, you don't have this. You usually have the severe winters down here, but I got a lot of folks, they soak that pellet, make kind of a warm, mash for their horses in the wintertime. Most of the other senior diets out there, you can take a handful and put it in a clear plastic cup of water and come back the next day and it's still holding its pellet form. Equine Senior, put it in there, within 2 minutes it's fully dissolved because everything's been pre-cooked. Again, we've got a lot of patents. So there's needs for it. When do I need to feed a senior diet? Well, that really varies. And again, working like with Desert Pines, they can kind of really tell you. Some horses you might have to get on a senior diet when they're 6, 7, 8 years old because the earlier stages in their life, they were tough. I think we fed, it was 3 years ago now, the Steer Wrestling Horse of the Year, and there was 2 contestants, rode that horse through all 10 rounds at the National Finals Rodeo. He's 35, and he was on a Strategy. So, I guess we kind of like to maybe say they start getting geriatric around 16. But again, it's on an individual basis. You can get way up into the 20s feeding a pellet feed. Your senior feeds are generally going to cost you a little bit more money because the way we have to process them and what we have to put in there. And then we really, really wanted to complicate everything. You know, oh my God, you know, I've been feeding Equine Senior forever. Now you come out with this active, healthy edge stuff, and am I feeding the wrong thing? Well, a lot of guys have those older horses, but they're doing stuff with them, you know, so they need more calories. This has to be fed with a roughage. I have very few people feed the actual original Equine Senior. They feed that with hay, so they're not feeding, you know, the recommended amounts. But this definitely, there's no built-in roughage in that. So, but if you guys have those senior horses that are truly geriatric, but you're still riding them, doing a little bit more, this is a great option for you. And then we've got the Equine Junior. You know, I've got a lot of stuff for the babies. You know, and again, we've made it really complicated. I've got an Omeline 300 developed for mom and a baby, Equine Junior. We've got the Ultium Growth also. And it's like, really? Do you guys, like, how many more can you have? Well, again, to me, you know, when I talk to people, my first choice is strategy. You know, because again, if you have that mare in gestation, lactation, you know, strategy is one of the greatest products out there. You just adjust the amounts of intake, and then when that baby starts creep feeding, you keep him on a strategy. You wean the baby, he's on a strategy, so he can go from start to finish. So, but Equine Junior, you know, again, if we need to get a hold of the diet because there's a built-in roughage, we've got some developmental, skeletal problems, issues, something, whatever, that can be fed as a sole ration. Equine Adult, a lot of people, again, this is a complete feed. We really don't sell a lot of the Equine Adult. It's great, you know, for those middle of the road kind of guys. But again, out here on the West Coast, we've got such good forage, our alfalfa, our grass hays. And I'm not a big alfalfa guy, but you know, you spend time in Texas or other parts of the country and you look what they're feeding for roughage, and ooh, they don't have a whole lot. You know, when I used to haul back to Texas to these big fraternities, I looked like the Beverly Hillbillies going down the road. You know, I had a 34-foot trailer, and I had every nook and cranny stuffed with feed, and I had stacks and stacks and stacks of hay on top of that trailer. And you know, you always want to tarp them because you never know what the weather's going to be like. And you get 20 feet down the driveway, and the tarps are blowing. And anyway, you know, back in Texas, certain parts of the country, we sell a lot of this. And then, you know, we've got a lot of the Omelines. A lot of people want to open up that bag of sweet feed. Ooh, it moves, it looks so good. You want to take a handful and put it in a bowl, take it to the house, put some cream on it, and eat it for breakfast. Well, we've made it confusing because we've got 5 Omelines. But the pictures on the bag and, you know, the wording, we've tried to make it simple. Again, you got the pasture potato, you know, the guys that really aren't, you're not doing a whole lot because the calories are pretty low, but it's got a great vitamin mineral pack in it. The Omeline 200 is probably our heaviest hitter we have. You know, you've got performance horses, mom, the baby. There's a lot of different things you can do with the Omeline 200. Again, the 300 was developed for mom and the baby. You know, a lot of different ways. The baby's first year of life, you can keep them on the Omeline 300. Then we have the Omeline 400. It used to be called Complete Advantage. It's probably about 80% beet pulp. This is really a big deal in the endurance world. They like feeding a lot of shredded bark mulch. I think a lot of them go to Home Depot and buy the big sacks of it and try to soak it and get their horses to eat it. I'm not a big beet pulp guy, kind of a guy, but it's so messy. And you know, if any of you guys, I'm sure there's got to be 1 or 2 of you in here that, you know, have issues with your horses where you got to be soaking hay. Oh, sorry, Lisa. I hate soaking anything. You know, if they can't eat it, I'm going to find a new home for them. But the beet pulp is the thing that really gets me. Anyway, with the Omeline 400, you can open up the bag and it's dump it, ready to go. And you can add, you know, your carrots and your vitamins and minerals and all the other stuff that you don't need to, but that's our Omeline 400. And it also works well if you have horses that have allergic conditions, which we're finding more and more in that, you know, with the beet pulp. You know, it really kind of helps keep them hydrated. And, you know, if they've got the coughs or whatever, that can be fed as a sole ration, so we can really back off on the hay. It's going to, again, cost you a little bit more money. Then we came out with the Omeline 500. You know, we have the product called Ultium. That was designed for the true end, high-end performance horse. You know, we've got a lot of things to help with muscle recovery, this and that, and a lot of bells and whistles in there, and I mean, it works. But when we came out with it, the English people, they didn't want to feed it because it was a cowboy feed. It was like, you know, You got a cutting horse on the front. I can't even remember what the pictures are now on the front of the bag, but we don't want to feed it. It's a cowboy feed. So they like feeding sweet feed, so we came out with the Omeline 500. It's kind of close. It's still not an Ultium, but if you've got the horses that are going down the road and you're trying to get that golden ring and you're a sweet feed feeder, Omeline 500 could wind up being a good avenue for you. Oh, there's my Ultium. You can't really see the pictures, but that's a cowboy feed. You know, we've got added amino acids to help with muscle recovery. The fat content, it's almost 12%. So when we first came out with this, a lot of people, horse economy was different. Ooh, that's new, the best, whatever, that's the best feed out there. I've got, you know, the Shetland ponies or the mini horses, I'm gonna start feeding them that. Or, you know, I ride my horse once a month, but that's the best feed, I'll feed them. No, because they were just getting greasy fat, it's out of control. So I have a lot of people that'll only feed the Ultium or the Omeline 500 for maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year. Then they'll go back to a strategy or an Omeline program, you know, maintenance program. But it's just nice when you get to the big event, you know, maybe a couple of weeks prior, you can start adding a little bit of that Ultium or Omeline 500 and start really kind of ramping up that, you know, energy and what they need for these week, 10-day long events. And then here's another, you know, growth formula, Ultium Growth. Hey, it's a great product, don't get me wrong. It's just, I like to keep my feed program as simple as I can. You know, there's specific reasons for this, so we can really aggressively go after these horses, you know, during the growing phases of their life and not create overdevelopment or too rapid a development, skeletal development, where now, you know, you're calling Lisa to set up an appointment because my horse, you know, my yearling's got bumps coming out all over his body and they feel like they're solid like bone. So this is a great product also where we can get a hold of those diets and it's designed for a specific need. Again, do you want to drive a Chevy, Ford, or a Dodge? Just how you want to get from point A to point B. Okay, anyway, everyone here tonight, I'm not really sure. I've got some forms before you guys leave. I'm just about done and then I'm going to take the questions. But before you guys leave, I've got some forms. What I want to try to do is every family here tonight, you know, if you guys are interested, I want to get you at least one free bag of feed. Or if you want to try our supplements or whatever. Now, it's going to take me, I need you guys, I've got pens, I've got more pens, but I need you to at least give me, you know, a name and a phone number, and if you have an email, I need to be able to read that. That's going to be really important, or then I'm going to have to figure out how to get a hold of you. And what I'll do is I've got 2 dealers I'd like to try to work this through, Cal Ranch or V&V Feed. So on there, you don't have to fill out all the information. You know, whatever you're maybe thinking, hey, I'd like to try this, or I'd like to try that supplement or whatever, just put a check, name, phone number. Don't worry about the manufacturing plant, but there's a spot you'll see dealer. Just put the dealer in there, then I'll know. I'll get everything entered, and probably next week, either Cal Ranch or where if you shop at V&V, they'll give you a jingle, and you guys go in and pick up a free bag of feed, if that's okay with you guys. And this is kind of what the form looks like. I'll get those out here in a second. Oh, my videos aren't working. I was so excited I got these videos in here.
You got them on your dump truck?
Yeah. Well, I still don't really know how to work my iPhone really all that good. But this was going to be kind of my closing before I took questions, you know, but I'm not a techno dude kind of a thing, whatever. It's way down at the bottom. I don't know. It's in the anyway. I don't know if Lisa can get it, but it was basically, I was going to say, you know, nutrition. You don't need to be, you know, kicked in the head, you know, to kind of get on a good feed program. And it was just kind of a funny video where guy walks up behind the horse and claps his hands trying to get him to move, and man, I mean, he gets whacked and he gets sailing. That's okay, Lisa.
I thought you might have it just.
I don't know what I've done. I don't know how I got it onto that little thumb thing. So.
Do you remember the link? www.
Oh no, don't worry about it. I pulled that. I stole it from somewhere.
It is on YouTube.
Oh.
I don't know.
That's good. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Okay, on my last slide, or 2 more slides, it's not working now.
Oh no, what's not working now?
From current slide.
Current slide.
Okay, ooh.
Now I got there. Now you
Oh, there we go. Anyway, okay, I'm almost done. We're going to do questions. I really want to thank these guys here, you know, because I know that they're really, really trying to, you know, do something every month. And we do a tremendous amount of work with Desert Pines, you know, for years. And I work with a lot of vet practices, and it really makes me feel good because I've got some other large vet practices and they're off doing their thing. And I know this is an ungodly amount of work trying to put these together, but I want to thank Lisa and Desert Pines, you know, because I know you guys are doing these once a month and we're going to do more. So that's kind of my hope it made sense. I appreciate no one throwing anything. And if you're ready, I'm ready to start throwing or asking questions. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what you think about mixing different feeds, but I have a really, really old thoroughbred. He's anywhere between 35 and 40. And his teeth don't work well anymore, so he can't eat any rough fish or anything. He tries to chew it, but just spits it out. So I had to make a list of what we get. I feed Senior, Rice Bran, Equity Coastal, Strategy Healthy Edge. I used to feed Amplify, but then I noticed it's in the Strategy Healthy Edge. Platinum CJ and Pool Calories all at once in one full bucket, and the guy's skinny.
No. Okay, I'm just trying to mentally in my head, because I know a lot of those products, okay, it's costing you a fortune per head per day, to feed him per day. Okay. See, the big thing is, again, I'm going to go back to, I don't know who it was that designed their digestive system, but it's really not really that great. I mean, there's animals out there. That possum I had earlier, way, way, way better. So you create so much competition for those selective digestive points on a normal average type horse. So what happens is, like our products, okay, we now have a line of supplements. I never thought Purina would have supplements, but we have supplements. Okay, we've got the fat sources, whatever. Anytime you start taking a little of this, a little of that, some of this, okay, you take a balanced ration and you completely unbalance it. Again, we're going back to the broom closet, you know, mixing everything. So it's everything you say sounds good, but you've got such an unbalanced ration, I can't tell you. And you would be almost ideal. Okay, forget about taking a feed sample and sending it off. I can give you some independent labs, not affiliated with Purina, and you know, for a very small amount, take a fresh manure sample and send it off and get it tested, because I can almost guarantee you everything that's going in the front door is going right out the back door. So you've got this older guy, you know, hopefully Desert Pines has kind of looked at the teeth, and I know that they shut down. But
By the way, he's a lot more active than my youngest horse, which is 4.
get rid of my product. Get rid of, what was there? There was like 9 things on that list. You want to have one thing. And again, okay, platinum, and it's this, and it's something, it's whatever. I mean, I will save you a fortune, and probably in a month and a half, the first month and a half, you're probably not going to like me. But if he doesn't have the teeth, and you know, we need to do things, you're going to have to feed him higher amounts. You know, so to me, and I'm not trying to bamboozle you, you need to do Purina or you're nuts. If you get him on Equine Senior, and if he's really truly lacking a little bit, he's ribby, doesn't have that good top line, okay, then we want to look at soaking those pellets. And again, a lot of situations, these horses are grazers. You know, I know we don't have the luxury of feeding them 4 or 5 times a day. If we could, that would be like great. You know, a lot of cases, great case, they get fed twice. Most of the time they get fed once. So if you can break up some meals for this guy and feed him at least twice a day, but get him off all that other stuff and get him on like the Equine Senior, and then maybe go to the Amplify product and top dress that. But for the first month, you're going to want to you already have some Equine Senior in the diet. So anytime you make any kind of changes, you want to do it like over a 7-day period. And ease them onto a high percentage of Equine Senior, get all that other stuff out of there, top dress with the Amplify, and even ramp that up a little bit. And I can almost guarantee you in 35 to 40 days, you'll start seeing some of that condition coming back. Because again, even though he's an older guy, if he's active, he's not active, you're not creating all that competition again for those selective digestive points. I mean, you're feeding some good stuff, but you're just way too much. So I would say, even if you had a genetically identical horse, keep him on that program and then do what I'm telling you for 35 days. I'll run circles around what you're doing right now, and I'll save you a fortune doing it. And that's really honestly, and you can call me in 35 or 40 days. And it's like, hey, knucklehead, I tried what you did. You know, he still looks the same, or he's not gaining, or whatever. Well, maybe, you know, we've got an issue. Maybe we've got a stone, or, you know, a hook, or something. That's where talking with these guys is really important. But you're feeding way too much. Well, okay, I'm here. You're there. Okay, what is he, 900 pounds? Where is he at?
Yeah, he's probably between 900. Yeah.
Okay, and so now he can't eat any hay at all, or so you've got him.
He loves grazing, but he's right now.
Now, you see, we've also, you know, got another product. I mean, Equine Senior has a complete roughage built into it, whether they're eating it or you turn it into the milkshake.
Oh, I feed alfalfa and Timothy cubes too.
So he's able to kind of break that down and slowly work them.
Yeah.
See,
I have cubes and pellets, but lately he doesn't like the pellets anymore. He's very picky too.
I've got a product that we came out with. We actually launched it here at the NFR a couple of years ago. It's called hydration hay. And, you know, pretty much.
I have some of that too, but I haven't tried it.
Okay. The hydration hay, you know, we're not really trying to get high levels of protein. It's really to deliver, you know, the water into these horses. So if you were to get rid of all the stuff you just told me, get them on the Amplify, Equine Senior, and try that hydration hay. You know, because it's a really short stem, and even over the course of a couple of hours, it's so easy for these older guys to utilize and eat that. In fact, I've got a lot of vets now that are going down the road that carry hydration hay in their truck because they may wind up running into a certain situation where they need to hydrate a horse or whatever, or something's going on. So it's a great way to go. But just give me a shot for like 40 days and ease into it. But you've got way too much stuff going into that diet.
He's also had 3 strokes. That was before I started feeding all of that. And he's got a leaking heart valve. But he's very happy. He's pride cut and he's between 2 mares, so he's very happy.
Well, and that's perfect. See, everything in that product is pre-cooked. So they have to do very little. Once it hits the digestive system, it's breaking down and going where it needs. We even have some undigestible fiber in the Equine Senior, because if we didn't have that in there, okay, it's going to be okay, but we still want to try to force these guys to utilize their guts a little bit, you know, keep a little bit of that gut motility, you know, kind of going. So try it for 35, 40 days. I know it's going to save you ungodly amounts of money, and I know I can do you a way better job.
And one last question. What would you recommend for about a 10-year-old thoroughbred? And thoroughbred, they're hard keepers. So I use it mostly for dressage, nothing high performance or anything like that. So just right now I have them on just hay, and every once in a while I'll give them senior.
For your dressage horses, you know, if he's a racehorse.
It's an X-racer.
Okay, but he's got the thoroughbred bloodlines. You know, thoroughbreds are one of the toughest ones. It doesn't seem like, it doesn't matter what you do, trying to cover those last 2 digits, it's tough. It's just tough, but you can do it. But you need to keep that horse on a more consistent diet. And, you know, even if you're only using him for the dressage every now and then, you know, unless he's got digestive issues or teeth issues, the senior's not the good way to go for him. You know, if he's behind the 8 ball and you walk out right now and look at him and you're not real happy, you know, I would either go maybe with the strategy Healthy Edge, but if you're kind of showing him a little bit right now, the Ultium could wind up being a good way to go until then we get into this winter, and then back him off the Ultium and put him on a maintenance program. But also, if you're not happy with the way he looks, I would also probably be top dressing some Amplify into that diet also. Just get more fats, but in a month and a half, we got to look, because we're probably going to have to back him off, maybe pull the Amplify top dress out, because we've got it in the feed. But try to get that horse at least a couple of pounds per day. Don't hit and miss here and there and some over here. Get them going every day. And again, for the first month, let's get them to when you walk out in the morning, my guy's looking good. Then get them on a maintenance program, cut back, save you money, and everyone's happy.
He's a stallion too, so eventually I want to breed him.
Well, and you know, when you get into the breeding situation, there's things we can look at. But again, we just need to get good vitamin mineral and get a good fat source into this horse. Again, I hate walking out. My house, I hate walking out because I know the feed bill that I'm paying every month. And I want to go out with my shotgun and start shooting ducks. Get a bigger freezer. You know, but my wife and daughter got every one of them named. But, you know, I've got one, he's 28 this year. He's still got kind of decent teeth. And I've got a mare, she foundered. Someone didn't close the feed room and she, you know, kind of foundered. And I think she's like 11 or 12 this year. But I'll tell you what, it looks like I keep my horses under blankets. My wife and daughter, you know, they get a bath once a week. We don't do anything with them. But the one mare that foundered, you know, she knickers the most, so she gets extra feed, which they don't want to hear from me that we need to cut weight. They're happy and it's good. But I like to walk out and just see these horses look good. And then I can get in my truck and leave and rant and rave and, I want to sell them. So do it quick, but do it right, and then get them on a maintenance program and you're going to be way happier. And your feed program is going to be way simpler. Oop, one more, and then I'll get you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about forage.
Okay.
About forage. So, what is your recommendation? I mean, I've done everything from straight grass with straight alfalfa, everything in between. You know, and I don't think you can ever tell. You buy stuff from a feed store, and they say 60% for Bermuda, and it turns out to be 60% alfalfa. What do you? I mean, I'm not sure I'm capable ever of evaluating what my hay looks like. It really is, even though only what they tell me. But I don't know what to feed my horse.
Well, you're going to get a lot of different opinions, and you're probably going to get an opinion from me that a lot of people won't like. But you know, again, we want to try and have a simple, non-complicated feed program. I test more hay than you can shake a stick at. I keep an 18-volt drill in the back of my truck. I've got a big hay probe, so I can go up to a haystack and test all over. And I mean, I'm buying cutting grass samples or loose samples, and I send them in. You know what it looks like? Yeah, that's okay. I'll tell you, I made the loop, around Nellis here a couple of months ago, cattle ranches, and I was doing forage samples. And you get out there, and it's like, some of these ranches are 167,000 acres. And then I got the military, up there on the ridge. I'm over in Rachel. And, I'm trying to find a cow, because, that ranch over there was like, it was unbelievable. And Joe, don't go too close to the fence over there. And anyway, I took a bunch of forage samples and I sent them in. And I mean, I had to work my butt off to try to figure out what these cows were eating, and why they'd even eat it. And then I kept pulling stuff, and oh man, I got my knife and I'm pulling stickers out of my finger. Well, I sent this stuff off, and I knew, I laughed. It's like, oh, I don't even need to send this off. I should just shred up some cardboard and send it back. Well, about a week and a half later, I got the results back, and I was kind of really shocked, because I mean, I sent the garbage back, and it actually came back, and it, you know, the protein wasn't as bad as what I thought. I mean, there wasn't a lot of vitamin and minerals, but it really surprised me. So I'm Mr. Anti-alfalfa. I don't like alfalfa. I'm maybe a little bit more fortunate. Up in my neck of the woods, I have a little bit better access to grass hay. But, you know, generally these hay trucks running down the road, I don't know why they're not on fire, because, you know, a lot of the stuff we test is 24% protein, 25% protein. It's way, 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 way high in protein. And a lot of these horses can't really utilize a lot of that protein. So, you know, they eat it and it's all good and fine and dandy, but they pee a lot of it out. The thing where alfalfa to me is really bad is, you know, in an ideal world, we'd like a 2-to-1 calcium phosphorus ratio. Well, you probably got to go to Jupiter or Mars. I don't know. You can't get a 2-to-1 calcium phosphorus ratio, I don't think, anywhere. You know, and most of the alfalfa hays we test, you know, we're seeing 8-to-1, 9-to-1, you know, 9 parts calcium to 1 part phosphorus. Well, it's not really a big deal to me, you know, with probably 90% of these horses. But the last 3 months of gestation with these brood mares, you know, if we're breeding horses, man, we got a lot of calcium. We got an imbalanced diet going into these horses. And those babies, as they're growing in mom's belly, they're like a freaking sponge. So, I mean, we could wind up creating problems. You know, the first maybe 6 months of lactation, they're growing like a weed. Mom's still eating alfalfa, and now the baby's nibbling on it. So with the brood mares in those situations, I really, really want to try and find a good quality grass hay. Not always easy to do. But again, kind of where I was going back with this stuff that I tested, a lot of times you look at it, and I mean, you can go to a feed dealer and maybe he's got a stack of hay that, you know, wherever the ranch was, and it's browned a little bit. You'd be amazed. Because sometimes you test it and it comes back and man, it's good hay, you know. But again, if you can find a grass hay or at least a grass alfalfa, you know, the percentage is going to be all over the rainbow. You know, 1 week it might be 60% alfalfa and rest grass and orchard or something if it's coming from Utah, because the dealers right now are really scrambling trying to get hay. I mean, next year it's really going to be a big problem. So it's personal preference, and it's what's easiest for you to get. One of the things when you go to buy hay, I had a gal, really, really good friend of my wife. She's a little out there, but you know, so am I. You know, birds of a feather flock together. Well, she was at one of my seminars. We got talking about hay. So she had this revelation. She's going to go out and save a bunch of money, buy the same hay from the same rancher, and she's going to squirrel it into every nook and cranny she can. Her garden shed, she put up a hay barn, whatever. But she kind of missed the whole point of the whole thing. She went out and bought this ryegrass hay, and she called me a couple of days afterwards and said, you know, I went to your deal, and I'm kind of halfway PO'd at you, you know, because my horses won't eat this. What? This hay. So anyway, a couple hours later, she just lived down the road, and I wound up going to her house. Well, I tell a lot of folks, when you go buy your hay, yeah, the dealers don't like you going out there in the hay barn. They hate it when you go through the back door and then, you know, come into the store. They want to see you walk in. But even when I buy my hay, I'll go up and I'm going to look at their grass alfalfa, their whatever they have. And then, okay, I like that. I'm going to take a stem just on the outside of the bale and put it in my mouth. And you know, if it kind of tastes halfway decent, you know, hey, okay. Don't see a whole lot of nothing there. It's all good, no raccoon tails poking out. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to buy. Well, this gal, Lorraine, she bought like 6 tons of hay, this ryegrass hay. Well, I walked right over to the stack and I pulled my normal deal, put it in there. I'll tell you what, I turned into Ray Charles. My head started rolling in the back of my head like a slot machine. It was so bitter and rank and nasty, I couldn't spit it out of my mouth fast enough. And it's like, Lorraine, you need to look and try, you know, just a taste. If it's, you can feed this to cattle and they're not going to eat it. So, you know, you have a lot of choices, but you don't. So it's really hard. Me, anti-alfalfa, I can get good grass hay where I'm at. You're in a different market down here. So whether it's a 60-40 or whatever the blend is, as long as it's a good quality hay, and down here, you know, you can't drive down the road and go to the rancher and buy hay. You know, you're kind of stuck. My wife, she's always online. Oh, Craigslist or this or that. Hey, there's a guy over in Yerington. You know, he's selling hay for 10 bucks a bale, alfalfa, second cutting. I'm not going over there to buy it. There's a reason he's selling second cutting alfalfa for 10 bucks. Because he can't get rid of it. It got rained on or there's something wrong with it. Again, that's kind of, when you're buying your hay, it's getting expensive. Next year's going to even be more expensive because water allocations up north all over. These guys are really getting clamped down on. So just look at your hay, you know, and you can shop around a little bit, but just that stem real quick, you look at it and away you go. I don't know if that answered your question, but you know, it's just the babies. That's where my big deal is, ooh, alfalfa. I don't like it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about how much grain you're feeding versus what the bag actually tells you?
Okay.
I'm really concerned with that, and I'm trying to fix them, so.
She had a question. Okay, how much grain you're feeding versus what the bag really says. Again, on all our bags, we've got a national bag. I don't care if you're feeding rabbit chow, donkey chow, gator chow, dolphin chow, horse chow. Okay, on our horse feeds, we have got really, really good quality forage out here on the West Coast. So generally, because of the forage, we want to, you know, look at the overall diet. Generally, the feeding recommendations on all our bags are at least 15 to 20% high. You can cut it that much. Again, I've got guys out here that are feeding my strategy product 1.5 pounds maybe per head per day. You know, equine senior, I've got a lot of folks only feeding 3 pounds. I think it might say 5 or 6, depending on the situation. So again, you can generally really, really cut back without affecting that diet. You're still getting the vitamins, the minerals, you're getting everything that your ponies need, and away you go because of our good hay quality. Yes, ma'am.
How do you know whether or not you're ready for a senior?
Okay, if you're seeing, again, the folks here at Desert Pines, you know, kind of on a semi-regular, I know you guys just don't like loading your horses up and, you know, let's go to Desert Pines today, or, you know, hey, I'm, you know, off for the rest of the afternoon. I'll have Dr. Lamb come out. I know you guys don't, sorry, you don't want to do that. But I know you guys, a lot of you, see a veterinarian once in a while. So, you know, they're really going to be able to tell you, you know, just by looking and seeing. You know, the big thing is really, I run into all the time, is the worming program, are we doing that kind of right? The dental program, are we doing it right? And then you can kind of see as some of these guys are kind of getting on in years, you know, I think it was on that body condition score in the very beginning. You know, it looks like they're starting to get sway back. Well, they're just losing all the condition there. You know, over the dock of the tail, you know, that's a really good fat area where they have the deposits, the wither along the neck. So a lot of times they'll tell you when they're ready for, you know, a senior diet. They're just starting to look poor. You know, they're not eating their hay as well. You're on a different diet and they just can't chew it. Maybe they've lost some teeth or whatever. But again, I mean, you could be 8 years old. You could be up into 35 years old. You know, it just, every horse is a little bit different. We want to say generally at 16 is kind of when they start getting geriatric, but that is a very, very loosey-goosey number, you know. And I've got people, again, they want to have a simple feed program. They've got a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then they've got a 18-year-old, and they're feeding them all equine senior. Great. It's a simple feed program. You're not doing anything wrong. Those younger horses are getting all the vitamin, minerals, fats they need. It's just costing you a little bit more, maybe 3 or 4 cents per head per day more to feed those 2 other younger horses, the equine senior, but you're keeping your feed program simple.
Well, he's a barrel horse.
Okay.
I'm afraid that maybe I have him on it too soon, but he's 18.
Again, PRCA Steer Wrestling Horse of the Year 3 years ago, 20 runs inside Thomas and Mack, 35, and he was on strategy. Pelleted, hard little pellet. He was on it. I mean, I've got horses all the time when we do senior meetings that are up into their 30s. That, I mean, they've started off in life so good, and they've got the good vet care, the good dental care, everything's been done right. So a lot of times you don't need to get them on a senior diet until they're mid, late 20s, whatever. But again, everyone's an individual. So, I mean, if he still can eat and do everything good, get the 18 out of your head, okay? Forget about that. You know, you may want to go back onto like an Omling 200, or you may want to, you know, if you're running him right now and he's lacking, then you may want to get him on Ultium. Again, transitions, the 7 days, slow, ramp them up and get them up to where you go. Because with the Equine Senior, you've got the built-in roughage. So, you know, there's stuff going in there that those true older guys need. But if he's not really needing it and you've got that performance horse, let's try to get him to roughage. Can he eat hay still a little bit?
Oh, yeah, he eats.
So you get him on a 200, you get him on a strategy, or you get him on an Ultium, and away you go. And try it for a little bit, see what happens. But I think you'll see a huge difference. You'll start getting that energy back when you're, you know, going on the weekends, and you'll start getting that body condition back up. Yes, ma'am.
Question, but I've got a 19-year-old retired show horse. He's got Cushing's, and he's on percent daily. He's been on Equine Senior now for about 3 years, and all of a sudden he just doesn't like it anymore. He just flat won't eat it. He's great teeth, eats grass and eggs twice a day, but would you suggest something else? Because he just doesn't like it anymore.
Well, you know, it's hard when you get into those specific diets. You know, when you have the true Cushing's or whatever. We really got to watch what we're putting into these guys.
He's only on about 3 pounds of the Equine Senior a day because he's got to watch his weight too. He's got a sensory injury in the back, which might be tired.
See, we've got a specific diet we came out with a few years ago called Well Solve. We've got a weight control, and then we've got the low starch. So, you know, you could maybe for a month go on to the Well Solve. I think I've got brochures up. Yep, right there. You want to go the LC. You may want to try that for, you know, the WC is the weight control. That's our cheater diets for Porky. You know, it's an extruded, we've blown air into it, so you can feed them 2 or 3 pounds and they're happy and they're not starving and they're eating while all the other horses. But for you, I would go the LC, or the LS, low starch. Try that for a month. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than Equine. LS. Yes. And it's going to be more expensive than Equine Senior, but you know, just mix his diet up a little bit. Maybe you go a week. Now, like when you're going back and forth from the Equine Senior to the Well Solve, you don't have to really worry as much doing that 7-day transition period, because we're not doing something out here in left field and then trying to go over here and bring them together so you don't have to worry about those colic. I still being politically correct. You want to do it gradually, but that could be a good option to get them kind of going. It's got the fats and everything in it also.
But it doesn't have any of the molasses or anything?
No. You'll actually get a lower glucose.
He used to eat everything and he hoovers everything, but for some reason he just won't eat.
Molasses and starch levels, sugars are almost virtually non-existent in there. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
I have a not affiliate, a mayor that actually lost a whole bunch of weight because she colicked and she got diarrhea real bad. And anyways, we can't get her weight up, and we're trying to find something that won't make her real crazy because she's part Arab, she's half Arab, so she gets real crazy if we're going on hot water or anything.
So what are you feeding right now?
We're feeding Bermuda grass and Timothy pellets.
Okay, so you've got virtually no fat whatsoever going into the diet. So again, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, you're trying to get weight back, you're not going to ride them, whatever. We don't want them hot and crazy. So to me, a very, very economical way for you to go to get a 6% fat and to get good vitamin minerals into this horse would be that strategy product I talked about earlier. It's like up there, Carson was like $1.19 per head per day. And those are on horses that are working. So again, for like you, over maybe a 7-day transition, we get them kind of going into it. And you know, for the first month, if you're trying to get weight on and get a little bit of bloom, you know, you might want to be feeding them at least 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds twice a day. And then you'll start seeing them, you know, bloom out, start maybe that top line coming back, we may need to look at top dress and a little bit of amplify, get a little bit more fat into that diet. But once you get there, then you can back off. And I know Arabians are one of those horses too that are a little bit hard to get that weight on. I'm not going to say I'm going to cover you 100%, but I can definitely turn you around. But you need to get a good fat source, and you need to get a good vitamin mineral pack into this diet. I'll talk about Super Sport. Remind me again in a minute here. Yes, ma'am.
With the vitamin mineral pack that you're talking about, it really eliminates the need for so many of the supplements that I'm seeing across the market. That's what you're, in a nutshell.
Yeah, because, if you try any of my feeds, the research, everything we've done for specific needs, if you're close to the recommended amounts, you don't need to be adding a whole bunch more of that stuff unless there's a specific reason you need to. And again, that's where you guys have a good relationship with a veterinarian and you can discuss that. Let's try this, let's whatever. But again, you're taking a great concentrated diet, and even if you put a little bit of something in there, now you're taking that vitamin mineral pack that we already have in our feed and add more, so you've taken the balanced ration and it's unbalanced.
Our feeding program just runs such a gamut. We have 2 dressage horses, 2 mounted shooting horses, we have a retired halter horse, we have a giraffe vaulting horse, and we have a retired 3-day avenger. So we have crazy.
Well, and okay, to me, again, I am a horrible salesman for this company, because all this lovely feed I've talked about tonight, we really don't need all of it. I've been into such extreme situations with the strategy. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a horrible sales guy. It's cheap, it just flat works, and it's so economical. And now you've got the whole gamut of everything. Well, you just adjust the amounts of intake. Okay, I've got draft horses, I've got Shetland ponies, I've got maintenance horses, I've got a thoroughbred, whatever you have. You can adjust the amounts of intake. Well, you might not like a pelleted feed, so then maybe we get you into one of the Omelines. The only thing I would say on top of that, okay, let's say we get your whole herd on a strategy product, then maybe some of them that are going really hard, you ramp it up. End of the year, back and back down, maintenance program. Again, you may want to look at maybe adding a little bit more fat, the amplify. There's nothing that will put top line condition on anything like that amplify. I've even got guys, stock contractors, feeding their bulls. I go in behind there, they're bringing in 50-pound sacks to their bulls. I've never done research on it on the bulls, but man, they love it and they feed the heck out of it. So just keep it simple. You've got a lot of different animals, and maybe you need to at some point bring in an equine senior on top of it. Well, at least then you're only dealing with 2 feeds and maybe a once in a while top dress.
Yeah, the Avenger's already on the senior because we have such issues with him his weight. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a good leg for his name anymore. And I cannot, when he came into my place, he was about 300 pounds overweight. I've got about 200 back on it.
Good. So those are some thoughts. It doesn't need to be, I hate a complicated feed program. You guys got better things to do and whatever, and just keep it simple. But I know, whatever you're doing, you're going to be able to see results in a month and a half, 2 months. And I'll save you a lot of money, and a lot of times I'm going to just flat do you a better job. Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like the horse has to have fat in their diet to keep a healthy weight. Is that the deal?
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing with these guys. Okay, if you've got those horses, you've got a little irrigated pasture, you've got a dry lot, you're throwing a little bit of hay, and you are doing nothing with them, you're just happy to go out there and see them, and they're going to be there every day for the rest of their life. Okay, maybe they really don't need a concentrated feed. Well, I've got a product called Enrich Plus. It's a concentrated vitamin mineral pack. They'll eat it right out of your hand. Doesn't have the fat in it, but it's got a really, really good vitamin mineral pack. John, I don't need it. I got one of those trace mineral blocks out there. I see them eat on that every now and then. Well, yeah, they're 98 point whatever % salt, and really for them to get a right amount of minerals out of there, they'd have to stand there and chew on them. So no. You know, whether you have a white salt block or, you know, the red block, it's okay. I've got in one of those brochures another product. You know, it's a 12-12 horse mineral. It's a self-free choice feed. I've either got it in a block form, or you can hang a bucket on a fence and just dump it in there. And as they need vitamin mineral, you know, it's very weather resistant, they can pick on that a little bit. So we just really, a lot of our stuff, we really want to round out our forage. Even though it's really good quality, it's lacking a lot of those trace minerals, vitamins that these horses really need. So just a lot of different ways you can go. Going, any more? Okay, I'm going to hand out these forms. Oh, Super Sport. Oh, good, I got a reminder here. Yeah, we've got a new product. I think I've got it in the big handout up there. And it's a product, it's really designed for the high-end performance horse. It's got added amino acids. It's brand spanking new. But it really, we came out with it in the beginning of January. And you know, I'm not a big guy. We got a lot of products come out. But you know me, I got to kind of halfway see and believe and be sold before I can kind of come and talk to you guys about it. Well, I'm really good friends with a bunch of the folks back at the research farm, and I was back there 2 months ago, and 3 months ago, whatever. Anyway, I saw the results. I got to do the touchy-feely what we did with the Super Sport, and I mean, it was nothing short of absolute amazing. We're able to get, with very low amounts, it's a top dress. Again, it helps in muscle recovery. There's added vitamin minerals, added amino acids, whatever, but there's lysines, different things, and we can actually create very good lean muscle growth on these horses. Not every single horse needs it, but you know, some of these horses that are just maybe needing a little bit more back here, maybe a little bit more on the shoulder, it was absolutely completely mind-blowing, the results I saw. And it's not like you're giving them a steroid. It's all natural, been researched for a long time. But I mean, it's not like a bodybuilder, big gross muscle. It's a very lean runner's type muscle. And again, if you're going a lot of times, you know, you work your horse really hard one day and you bring him out of the stall and he walks out okay, but maybe he's a little stiff or sore. With the added amino acids in here, it really helps with that muscle recovery. So they walk out the next morning and it's like, bring it, I'm ready. It's a product called Super Sport. I have it in one of the handouts up on there. Again, designed to be fed in beautiful, very small amounts. And not every single person in here is going to need a Super Sport. But if you're blowing and going hard, or you've got a specific situation, man, it can really do some dynamite stuff.